You're not responsible. It was wrong. Reach out to me. We'll connect you.
I will never see, speak, or hear from Aaron Smith-Levin for the rest of my life.
I've been raised since the age of 4 to follow orders, do as I was told, or risk losing everything.
If we speak out, that's the only way they're going to get the strength to have the courage to do the same.
Why the hell does someone have to escape to get out of a religion?
I'm still shocked by the evil. This is pure evil at work. Okay, on today's show, I have the sweet and kind, and I'm so sorry it took me so long to get her on the show, from Season 2 of Scientology and the Aftermath. Thank you for coming on the show, Marie Bilheimer.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right. So, just to confirm, you are a second-generation Scientologist? Or you were a second-generation Scientologist? You're not, but you were.
Yes. So I was born and raised in Scientology. My parents had met at the Edmonton org, and I was the fourth of their children. Yeah, and so pretty much my whole life was just in Scientology.
The whole family was in?
Yeah, well, my mom, my dad, and all of us kids, and then my stepdad as well.
And how many siblings did you have?
3.
3 siblings. Okay, so it's 4 of you. All right, that's right. Okay, so we talk about this a lot, and I think there's commonly a misconception that because your parents weren't always Sea Org, right?
No, my parents were on staff in Edmonton for a bit, but they were never in the Sea Org.
All right, so when you have parents and staff, oftentimes the conception is that, or oftentimes the impression is that you lived almost normal child lives, but from what you described to me, you didn't.
Well, I didn't, but I wouldn't attribute it to really the staff period because by the time I was born, my parents weren't staff members any longer. But my whole life, my mom especially was very committed and involved with Scientology and doing Scientology services. We moved from Canada to LA when I was 4, and in 1988. And she had moved here somewhat to be closer to our father, and then also so she could do the state and all special briefing course because she had reached the levels that she had reached at the org in Canada, and she couldn't do anything further there because she'd gotten as high as she could at that level. And as soon as we moved here, she was pretty much on the briefing course. That's eventually where she ended up meeting our stepdad, and my whole life was either on every weekend, all full time, or every evening. So there were definitely periods of less parental supervision and just experiences as a family in general together.
Did you feel the relationship you had in Canada with your mom distancing as you came to California? Less and less you had a real mother figure?
It's funny because it was something that I was actually talking about with, I think, my therapist, which was that when I was thinking about memories of my mom and the nurturing moments, and what I recall of her being close to me was more when we were in Canada before we had left and moved to LA. Because even then, when we were in LA, she, for the most part, either worked for Scientology private schools or she owned her own Scientology private schools. And those were the schools that our family, that my siblings and I all attended, which meant, yes, our mom was there and she could be more in physical contact with us rather than going to like a 9-to-5 job. But at the same time, we were a lot of times considered like faculty, or we actually were part of the faculty, or you had to kind of maintain a certain like image even there. Similar to the Steward, where it was like you're part of the family business, so you have to, be
right.
to all of the students. You have to, set a good example for everybody, and it wasn't the same relationship of just going out and doing family things with your mom if you're going out and doing something with 30 other kids on a field trip. That's not like, yeah, I'm going to, the zoo with my mom and getting a lollipop or something. It's like there's 30 other children there.
Wow. Okay. So you're like staff by association, your family, your siblings and you.
Yeah, kind of.
So I think you described it as you guys. So she did this schools. It's not like she rented out space in a building. This was like out of your homes and your living spaces.
For the most part, there were periods when we rented other locations, but that was either early on or later after I had already pretty much grown out of it, or when I was in the Steward already. So from the age of, I would say, 8 until I was about 13 or 14, the school was within our home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you ever around other children who went to regular schools, children who weren't in Scientology?
Very, very rarely. I remember it was just sort of like, and now thinking about it, most of the people I knew, most of the kids I knew, most of the adults I knew, not even through school but other activities, they were all Scientologists. So you wouldn't really know somebody who wasn't a Scientologist, and if you did, you would think that they were kind of weird.
No, what's wrong with them? Yeah.
Well, and it was like, that was kind of trained into you. So you were prepped for, like, questions about Scientology, but you were also prepped to think that we have all the answers, they're in a trap, they don't know it, and we're saving the world, so, we essentially are better than everybody else.
Was everybody else the sort of 1.1 out ethics, had no idea what they were doing? That's basically what you're saying?
Sort of, like, or, the PTS to the middle class, or just uneducated, like, but not uneducated in terms of, like, society or real world, uneducated in terms of not knowing Scientology.
Right, so you just don't know what you're missing, and you need to be cleared, if at all possible.
Yeah.
And everybody's just automatically a so everybody's a PTS basically, just sort of not technically, but that's basically a mindset.
Pretty much. I mean, it is yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. What was that? Hello?
There's also just
You're cutting out.
it should be good now.
I hear you now.
Okay, good. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I don't know if you're talking.
So, yeah, I mean, there's the PTS A to J, which is like a list of various PTS types. And when you first go on the course, but especially when you are joining the Steward, they run down that PTS list, and you have to get a metered interview to determine if you are any one of those. And if you are, you have to handle or resolve the situation before you're allowed to go on the course or in the Steward. And I can't recall all of them off the top of my head, but some of them are, if you're connected to anyone in the media, or if you've ever worked for anyone in the media, or for newspapers, or that sort of thing. If you're open-minded, if you're involved in other practices.
That kills me. If you're open-minded.
I know. But they have a different. But that's the other thing. They have their own definitions and language for this. Oh, sorry, something just smashed. down in my car.
You okay?
So, yeah. No, I just had a metal water bottle that flew off of my
Oh, okay. Scary. Okay.
If you're open-minded, it doesn't mean the same as it would to a non-Scientologist where you're like, that's good, you should be open-minded. There's a negative connotation to it. Which you weren't. So I remember the first time when I was reading these policies and, like, looking through the list, and you had to, like, attest that you weren't open-minded. And I remember reading it and then having to look up the definition and thinking, like, there's something wrong with that? Like, aren't we supposed to be open-minded by, like, accepting Scientology beliefs?
Right. Okay, so what does open-minded mean in Scientology?
It means, gosh, I wish I had the actual definition. It means, at least what it meant to me was that you are open to other information and you'll be accepting of other information and knowledge and practices that are not associated with Scientology.
But that is open-minded.
I know, but you're sort of flippant. Like,
it's a different take on it.
What's that?
Like a different take on it. Like it's a spin.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. I'm going to have to call you sometime off the air and do some word clearing with you so I understand these things when I read them.
Oh, yeah.
My goodness. All right. So you went through all that, and how old were you when you got into the Sea Org?
I was 15 when I joined the Sea Org.
You were 15. And you did this, you wanted this, is that right? You wanted to join the Sea Org, you wanted to be the best?
Kind of. A lot of other friends of mine had already started joining. One of my older sisters had joined, and, well, she had joined and left already. She was only in for about a year. And then Nicola, my other sibling, had also joined and was still in. And when I first started getting recruited, I was being recruited for LA org staff to replace somebody there that was supposed to be moving up to the Sea Org. So they were recruiting me for staff, but it kind of turned into a Sea Org recruitment after a couple of days. And then, they give you a lot of propaganda, and especially with someone who's been born and raised in Scientology, it's very easy to get them to believe that what you're telling them is true because you already believe everything in Scientology that you're told or taught. And when they're telling you, there's these secret societies and they come with these like weird conspiracy theories and to kind of scare you into how bad the world is and I was going around with Brandon Faust, my recruiter, for a couple of days, and the Sea Org life that he was kind of showing me was completely different than what is actually there, because I was just, riding around with him in his car, and he would be shopping, at local Scientology schools, basically looking for who he could pick off, and pointing out to me who would be good candidates, and then he'd go out, go to a restaurant and eat, and he didn't really have a schedule, and he could just sort of do whatever he wanted. And at that time, I was very involved in dancing. I was doing dance classes and teaching dance classes every day of the week. And that was something that I wanted to do as a career. And eventually I decided, okay, I'm going to join staff. And I thought, okay, I could work that out and still have, the other part of my life going on. And then I was in my last dance class, and I was standing there, and I thought, well, why would I be wasting any time doing anything else when the most important thing in the world is clearing the planet and getting Scientology out there? So that's when I decided to join the Sea Org instead.
Wow, they just take everybody out of their dreams. I've heard this story so many times where they had goals and they had things they wanted to do, and the way it's told to me is, well, you have the next lifetime to be that dancer.
Well, and I was told, oh yeah, you can go to Golden Era Productions because you are so trained and skilled that like you'll get promoted up there, and you can definitely do. Oh, I write poems all the time. I do my music. Like I'm an artist too, but I'm in the Sea Org, that sort of thing. And that was definitely not the case.
Right. I mean, there are people who, oh gosh, you just, gosh, I'm drawing a blank, but there's people I know of who, Karen Presley's ex-husband, like, he could have been a real composer, and now he does the little piano keyboard at the events, and that's all he does. So, it's like a crushed their dreams.
And when I was about, I must have been 15, I believe, there was an audition for a scholarship at Cal Arts, and I told my mom that I wanted to do it because I could get a scholarship and go to college, which would otherwise be impossible. And it was an arts college for dance. But even though my mom and my stepdad were educators that owned their own school that were, teaching all of these children, they were very opposed to higher education and to me going to college. And even though it wasn't even like a regular college, it was an arts college, and I was going to try to get a scholarship for myself. My mom wouldn't let me go.
Because it's not helping Scientology?
Yeah, because why would you be wasting your time with an education in a college where it's going to fill your brain full of false information when you can be spending that time going up the bridge?
Anything not course material is a distraction from the real goal.
And it's a waste of time, and you have a potential for getting pulled out of it because you're surrounded by so many non-Scientologists all the time.
Right, it's kind of an underlying thing. That's not something that someone's going to say to you in Scientology or something that they're going to make apparent, but that's what it is.
Yeah, they won't outrightly say that, but that's behind, it's in the background all the time.
Do you think you've been there, you've been one of those folks, being in that position, do you think you knew that you were doing that when you did that, or do you think you were really just focused on the word of LRH? Were you just a true believer, or do you think you knew that you were telling people because if they went the other way, they were going to get pulled out by a PTS?
No, I don't think that I felt like I believed it, but you want to believe it too. And I feel like there were definitely points where in the Sea Org, in the beginning, I was regularly taking the liberties, the libs that you're supposed to have every 2 weeks on Sunday. And it would die down, and I would take off here and there, but eventually I started stopping myself from doing that because I was feeling a pull to my family and to the outside world, because every time I would come back, I would feel this regret that I wanted to be with them, and so I stopped taking that time and seeing them because I felt like that was a distraction, and I shouldn't be having those thoughts of wanting to possibly leave.
Yeah, I mean, again, in your case, in the case of any second, third generation, it's all you've known, and there's always that hanging over you. I mean, you know nothing else.
Yeah. It's all you know, it's all your friends and family, so even if you question or want to get out of something, you don't have anyone to turn to, because even all of the adults, like if I were to go to, family, friends, or anybody, they would have kind of steered me back towards Scientology.
Okay. So you were a good Scientologist. You followed the rules. You didn't get in trouble, did you?
Not really. Even before I joined the Sea Org, there'd be kids when, getting alcohol somehow or having parties, and then everyone would, someone would find out and they don't have to go in and do ethics handlings. But I pretty much steered clear of that. And when I was in the Sea Org, or when I was on the EPF, I was groomed to go straight to CMO, the Commodore's Messenger Org. And pretty much right off of the bat, I witnessed people getting various punishments or ethics handling, and I just saw and decided that's not something I want.
Right.
So I'm going to just stay in line and not get in trouble.
So was it more fear than just being an overachiever, or a little bit of both? What was it with you?
A little bit of both. Very competitive.
All right. They wanted you.
Yeah.
They definitely wanted you in there.
Yeah.
All right.
I had to be the best at whatever I was doing.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Always be the best. Even don't be the best cult person, but you know what I mean. So a little bit of both. You were afraid to get in trouble, and how did you? This is right around 15, 16 years old. You're meeting Aaron, right?
Yeah, I met him at 15, right off of the EPS, because he was already in CMO PAC. And so to begin with, he was what was on the TTC, which is the Technical Training Course. So they had all of these mostly cadet children that they took from the ranch, PAC ranch, put them through the EPS, and then they put them into a training corps. And they were all on full-time courses, getting trained to be auditors. And so Aaron was one of those, but he was specifically assigned to CMO. So you'd be assigned to various orgs, and then once you finished the TTC, you would be then posted in whatever org you were assigned to. So he eventually then was assigned to what is called the Cracker Jack Unit, which is part of the investigations. So CMO basically, their main purpose, I would say, is finding situations in lower orgs and creating programs and plans based on whatever investigation that they've done and whatever they call it a why finding. So whatever the why is behind the situation, then they create a program to fix that. And so Aaron was part of that, the investigation side of it, and I was part of this group of mostly young ladies running around getting the programs done.
Okay. Well, was it still like it's described by like Lois Riesdorf and others who have been on the in the Commodores with LRH? It's still young girls for the most part, the younger.
Yeah, most of us were kids. There were people that had been there longer, so they were a little bit older. But especially if you're in CMO, you're gonna get promoted up the line as long as you're keeping your nose clean, or you're going to get demoted and kicked out and posted somewhere else. So, yeah, I would say the age group was, I think there was a guy that was even like 12 or 13, to maybe early 20s, but we were all pretty young.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so what was it that you and Aaron had in common? Because to hear your story on Aftermath, you guys were really on different ends of the spectrum as far as dedication and as far as the standard you lived as a Scientologist, is the way you practiced it. If that makes sense to say, am I saying that right?
I guess.
It's a hard thing to address, but go ahead.
Well, it is, and it's hard for me. You also have to understand that for a long time, I pushed Aaron out of my mind, and especially our relationship prior to the circumstances of me leaving. I didn't really think about that relationship. It was hard to think about him without thinking about all of the tough stuff we went through. But that was also part of what made me realize I wasn't a Scientologist anymore, was after 5 years of only thinking of him in a negative light and only thinking of what had happened, and being told he was out ethics and a bad person, and that, like, literally that he was one of the worst people that I had ever known, was what he was portrayed to me as. And after 5 years of grieving and still feeling how I did, I had to realize that I needed to change something, and that Scientology hadn't helped me getting through that. And I made a conscious effort for myself to try to remember good and positive things about him. And that's when I finally started being able to move on. And when I finally realized Scientology didn't help me with this, and it didn't work. And yeah, maybe when I was there were little things, but it wasn't real life experiences. And when it came down to a significant real life experience, they didn't have the tools to actually help a person.
Right. They boast the most ethical religion in the world. They boast that they have good marital counseling skills, and there's so much divorce rate. With Aaron being looked at differently by the Sea Org and by Scientology, with you being told how different he was, you guys probably didn't see each other a lot, right?
We didn't. So in the beginning, we worked in the same org. We worked in the same office, and pretty close together. And he was already pretty well trained, and I was like this little green newbie. And we'd do like the tone scale plotting together and stuff like that, it was so confusing to me. And then you're not really supposed to like tell anybody how to do any of the drills or things. Like, if you don't understand it, then you need to go and clear your misunderstood words or find what you don't understand. But no one else is supposed to be like explaining anything to you.
Right.
But I would go out with Aaron, and we'd be on the street. So I don't know if you've ever seen these people, but there'll be two of them, and they're standing on a street corner, in their Sea Org uniforms or whatever, with like a clipboard maybe or something, and they're literally just standing and looking at people and assigning what level on the tone scale that person is.
You guys are judging people as they walk by?
Absolutely.
Just regular citizens.
Yeah. And
okay.
Sometimes you will have like questionnaires where you'll go out and you'll ask them specific questions to get in a conversation to try to get what their tone level is. And then there's parts of the drill where you have to match the person's tone level. So if the person is angry, then you're supposed to get angry at them.
Weird.
It's very weird. And it's something that I did right off of the EPF, and it's like you're instantly taught to judge any outsider. And anybody else. So you're part of your auditor training is looking at somebody and deciding what tone level they are. So.
Wow, just judging that way.
Yeah, it's very weird. So that was kind of my first experience with Aaron.
Okay.
And he was very goofy. He loved to dance. So, and we had like a private CMO dining room, and he'd throw on like Saturday Night Fever and just like bust out some moves, and I just thought he was funny. And
nice.
Yeah. So eventually, it's kind of the dating situation in the Sierra is weird because literally while I was still on the EPF, I had people sending me notes of like, hey, once you're done, maybe we should date, because you're looking for your spouse, because you know that like it has to be within that pool, and anyone newly coming off the EPF is like fresh meat. You want to find like
right.
if you've already gone through everybody that's already there, anyone new is going to be, someone's going to try to snatch them up.
Interesting.
So, and the other aspect is that it's the only somewhat slight connection to a intimate and real relationship outside of being on post. Even though it's not normal in any way, you at least have another person that you can potentially confide in, or you can just have that downtime of like kind of being somewhat normal. And so I feel like there's various reasons, and I'm sure a lot of people had different reasons too. The other aspect is that you can get moved out of, the general fear of birthing and
right.
into your own dorm with your spouse. And then there's the sexual aspect of it, of you can't do heavy petting and beyond is not allowed, and you'll go to the RPF. So, and then having a bunch of teenagers running around with, all their hormones going on, it's like...
Right.
Oh, my God.
Do you think there's a rush to get married at that age because of those components?
I think there is, but also you lose your age when you join the PR too. So your age isn't considered
right.
anything.
Right. We're all
because
billions of years old.
Yeah. And yeah, so it doesn't really matter. And then like you kind of strip away your previous life and your family and stuff like that. So it's like it didn't matter to me that I was engaged at 16, And I even told my mom, like, when she was planning on, like, how she would tell her non-Scientology family, I was like, yeah, but how old were people, when Grandma's generation, when they were getting married? Like, people were getting married young back then, right, And my mom's like, yeah, I guess that's true.
Maybe there was a reason why that changed over time, Really you had something special with Aaron, but because of where you were and where he was, you were made to look at him differently. And when you look back, it sounds to me when I hear you talk about it, that's not who you are and that's not where your heart was, but you made yourself think these things because that's what you were taught to think.
Yeah, well, I didn't actually, until he had committed suicide, I didn't still look at him as a bad person, but I guess that was my downfall to them. It was a real struggle for me because I loved him, and I constantly felt like he was fucking up, and doing all these things that went against what we were trained and supposed to do, and I just didn't get why he couldn't sort of fall in line,
Right. Was he bringing you down? Was he making you look bad? Was that something that was going through your head?
All the time.
Yeah.
I was constantly getting embarrassed, and it was something where I felt in a motherly position a lot of times with him. And I was trying to take care of him and help him, but we had been separated in terms of where we were located, so I really couldn't keep an eye on him very well. And then I was sent to Flag, so we had even less connection. And during that time, I was there, I think, about 9 months. We could barely speak to each other because of the time difference and that I was on full-time training, and he was on the examiner position, which if anybody knows that position, you don't get very many breaks. So I think we maybe had 2 or 3 conversations while I was gone for 9 months.
Oh, God.
And I could hear in his voice that something was going on, and I couldn't do anything.
It's like he wanted to tell you something, but he didn't know how to tell you. Also, he didn't know what you would do with that information.
Yeah, and I'm at, like, the Mecca, right, getting trained and being, like, this hardcore, in ethics, dedicated Scientologist and Seer member, and he's, like, going the other way.
Yeah, I don't know how you're supposed to maintain a relationship in that environment. I always hear these stories like this, where people don't see their spouses.
You don't, and then when I returned, he was still the examiner, and the time that you would spend together would be on Sunday mornings when you're supposed to have, it's called CSP, the Clean Ship Program. It's supposed to be like you're doing your laundry and you're cleaning your dorm, and but people would spend it to like just take off, and we'd walk down to the farmer's market, or we'd go over to the Hollywood and Highland Mall, or go get lunch somewhere, or go have brunch with my parents or something, which was all illegal activity.
Wow.
But his schedule got adjusted where we weren't off at that same time. So not only did we not have those couple of hours, which we weren't supposed to be spending that way to spend together, we would only see each other at maybe 11 or 12 at night when we had to go to bed, and then we jump up in the morning and get ready and go to muster. So there was very little personal time for a while, and that we were already maritally struggling. Then there were periods where he wouldn't come home. He would just stay at PAC, or I don't know, maybe he was elsewhere. I have no idea. Because either he couldn't get a ride, or it was too difficult, or whatever the excuses were. It was late already. It was easy for him to just stay there, in an extra bed somewhere, or whatever it was.
Do you think they knew? Do you think when you do things like you were doing, when you guys were going to the mall and doing these things that you shouldn't be doing, do you think they knew that, and rather than punish you, they just changed the schedules?
No, because so that activity was something that a lot of people were doing, and it was sort of like you'd see somebody out, or you'd see someone, you'd go down the street and get picked up by your mom, since barely anyone can see you. But if you saw anyone else doing it, you wouldn't report them either, because you knew, like, we're in the same boat.
Right. Everybody's going to report everybody. There's nobody's going to win.
Yeah, and the schedule change was just because his senior wanted to spend his Sunday mornings with his wife.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah, it was like, I'm going to have to have, so eventually I told him, I'm like, sorry, you're going to have to budge on this, because I don't get to see my spouse ever.
Gosh. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and there were aspects to things he were doing that would then reflect poorly on me, just in terms of the image thing, and if you act the way that he did in the Fjord, you're going to assume, that person is out ethics, or they have other fish to fry, or there's something going on. So by association, then I'm overlooking that, being his wife, and not seeing those indications, and
right.
I have mutual ethics with him. Which, after Aaron had passed away, I had been an executive and had access to the personnel area, all of HCO, and I found a report written on me, directed to the RTC rep, an investigation into what my mutual ethics was with Aaron for not knowing what was going to happen and for missing his suicide.
What?
Yeah.
They were already blaming you.
They investigated what my mutual ethics was that I missed it because I had an ethics blind spot. So if you don't catch something with someone who's very close to you, you have what they call is an ethics blind spot because you have your own ethics that's similar to them that you didn't catch what they were doing.
Your ethics, your PTS in this was Scientology. They kept you from your husband. They made your husband out to be less.
They don't do wrong.
Yeah, it's not them. It's you, Marie, right? I mean, it can't be them.
Yeah.
And you know it's not you. You know it's not you.
No, I know that. I know. Yeah, and I found that, like, I don't know, maybe a week or two afterwards, and I was like, are you serious? Why? And then I was still on post at this point, but eventually just couldn't take it anymore. And that same person that did that investigation into me wrote a knowledge report on me for abandoning my post.
God.
Which I ripped up in front of everyone that was standing there while I read it,
yes.
and I threw it on the floor.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You know, you described... I don't want you to go beyond what you're comfortable with. But you described it...
I'm pretty comfortable.
Okay. All right. You didn't know, but you walked right past them.
Yeah. So he had come home, and it was very weird because about 2 weeks before it had happened, Aaron had told me he wanted a divorce again. And I was just like, are you kidding me? After all of this, are you serious? Like, oh my God, come on. I've gone through this. I've proved that I will stay married to you. I've proved that, like, I'm in it for the long haul. I don't care about being posted in. It's not what I want anyways. I want to stay married to you. And that...
Oh, that's all we had time for today. So we've heard so far what it was like for Maria to grow up in Scientology, how that changes the relationship with your family members, with your parents, and how it affects when you meet your mate and you get married and how it affects a marriage. Next week, the conversation in part 2 gets a little bit tougher as we get more into these details that Marie has just started to get into as I cut off the show. And you see the fallout of what Scientology does, and everything to dealing with the suicide of Aaron Poland to her mother and Aaron's mother doing smear videos. But hey, we'll cheer it up a little bit at the end with 10 questions, and hope to see you then. Until then, please stay connected, and that about sums it up. See you next week.
You have been listening to Come Get Some Extra on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, YouTube, and many other streaming services where available. As always, stay connected, and that about sums it up.